Why in the world would I be here giving you my little review of this movie right now? Well, I actually had the good fortune to see Wreck-It Ralph before most people. I got to see it in a preview screening on Tuesday, and I've been letting it mull over in my head since then, so I can give you my honest thoughts on it now, the day of its release to the world. Wreck-It Ralph was a fairly good movie. I think a lot of us, us video game media fans, are going to find a lot to love about it. Obviously, you got John C. Reilly. Who doesn't love John C. Reilly as the main character? But you've also got a lot of well-known video game characters in the film, and just from seeing the trailers, a lot of you have been saying, "Oh my God, this is going to be an amazing film," and I don't disagree with you. I mean, that's why I was really into it. That's why I really wanted to see this movie, was because, oh my God, there's Bowser and Zangief and, Ken and Ryu and Sonic and all these freaking awesome characters from my childhood, from the retro games that I know and love. And they're all right here in a Disney movie of all things. Wreck-It Ralph was a great movie. I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to come straight out and say it, kind of like how this has been off the cuff and not really formalized so far as a review. Just straight out and say it. Wreck-It Ralph was a great movie. However, yeah, I know. You're just like, however what? I know. However, it's not perfect. But is any movie really perfect? I mean, come on. Maybe one or two, but for the most part, there's really no such thing as a perfect movie. So when I tell you that this kind of follows in the same vein as pretty much every other animated Disney movie ever made, and that in that aspect it is not really thrilling or amazing or, special, then you have to take it with that grain of salt. That it is, in fact, special because of the fact that it's, playing on nostalgia and it's playing on all these amazing video game characters from our childhood that we all know and love. It's awesome in that aspect. But just the structure of the story of the film itself is pretty much everything you've come to expect from a Disney movie. That's all I'm saying. It's like, it doesn't break any walls, really. It just goes along the same thing. I don't know what it was about this movie that I really wanted it to do something more, do something interesting, something different. I think it's just the fact that as a film, it is different. It looked different, at least. It looked like, they don't always make, it's not every day that they make a movie about all these video game characters and put them all in one space and give us the concept that they could actually coexist together. They don't make movies about this subject very often. So when they do make movies about this subject, you don't want it to be like every other movie. You want it to be different. You want it to be special. You want it to mean something. And in a certain way, it does mean something. But the form of it it's formulaic. It's the same thing you've seen a million times before. So in certain ways, I'm sorry to say, this movie's going to fall a little flat for some of you. But, I can't just leave you feeling down and depressed about it like that. I do have to stress the fact that it is hilarious, it's fun, it is worth seeing in theaters. It's a really good movie. If I were to give it like a number score, somewhere between 7 and 8 out of 10. It is a really good movie. You've got everything you need. Fix-It Felix Jr., the game that Wreck-It Ralph is from, It's very clear to me that it's a play on Donkey Kong. Like, he is almost a Donkey Kong figure. And, like, the text that they use for the Fix-It Felix Jr. game title and everything, it looks like the text from the original Donkey Kong game. So it's like, it's clear to me that they're referencing Donkey Kong there. When they show a big guy at the top of the tower who's wrecking things and, making it harder for somebody who's trying to come in with a hammer and fix everything and save the princess or save whoever, that to me is like, okay, clearly they're referencing Donkey Kong. They just probably didn't get the rights to Donkey Kong or something like that, They worked with what they had and they referenced as much as they possibly could. And I'm happy with that. I'm happy with what they did in that respect. However, there is one little thing there. For something that is a reference to Donkey Kong, it's not a very good reference to Donkey Kong. Because, in particular, the characterization of him as being like, yeah, Donkey Kong's the bad guy, but eventually we all came to know and love him. That's just it. It's like, he's the bad guy, but he eventually became like the good guy in subsequent video games. In that way, he's kind of been this amorphous character who you cannot pin any one bad or good stereotype on. So if you're going to choose that kind of character to replicate, I guess it kind of works in that you can't really do that to Wreck-It Ralph either. But that's what they're constantly doing in the film. They're constantly treating him like he's a bad guy and like he'll only ever be a bad guy and he needs to be happy with being a bad guy. And it's like, that's all fine and well, but Donkey Kong never had to do that, and if you're referencing Donkey Kong, then what the fuck? Viewers like me who bring in that knowledge, that certain expectation of these types of things, are not going to be as happy as viewers who just go in blindfolded. And I guess that's kind of what they expect. But that to me is them dumbing it down. That to me is them saying that they don't have as much respect as they're claiming they do for video games and for, video game culture in general. Although, there is this aspect, this air in the film of a return to that era, a return to that age of the arcade. As it does take place in an arcade, and these video game characters are from arcade cabinets. They're not from video game consoles. They're not from computer games. They are from arcade game consoles in an arcade. So part of me hopes that all of the kids are going to see this movie as it is aimed at children, as it is also a animated film from Disney. And being that they have crafted it the way that they have, part of me is seeing this and hoping that kids are going to see this and say, okay, yeah, all these games that my parents grew up with are really freaking cool. And I really want that arcade experience, and I want to go to an arcade. So part of me is seeing that and saying, I hope this revitalizes the arcade industry in some small way. Because I miss the arcade. And that is exactly what this film is telling you. You miss the arcade. You want the arcade back. So, yeah, I really hope that this does in some way do something to revitalize either retro gaming or the arcade. I feel like in certain aspects, retro gaming is already and has already been revitalized in several different ways over the last 10 or 15 years. But I just want to see that return also to the arcade as well. So, it's good. It has its flaws, but, it's still like a really good movie that you definitely want to take your family to. You definitely want to see this in theaters. And also, I saw it in 3D, and I can tell you, in this case, the 3D is actually quite good. There were no flaws. It popped right out, and everything was great, and there wasn't anything that felt flat. It was just, bam. It just worked, It looked good. It felt good. It felt real almost. Well, maybe not real, but it felt right watching it in 3D. So if you're one of the people who can enjoy 3D without getting headaches or without any other issues, then I would say go ahead and see it in 3D. Um, Otherwise, see it in 2D. See it however the hell you want to. But see this movie because it's really good, especially if you're a fan, of course, of video games and of retro gaming and of arcades and stuff like that. You're going to see a lot of familiar faces. You're going to see a lot of unfamiliar faces. But the unfamiliar faces, as I've said, are based on familiar faces. So, you know, as long as you're not going to be lost on that, I'm sure you're going to find a lot to love from this movie. So, yeah, there's my review of Wreck-It Ralph. I hope I haven't turned anybody off by suggesting that it's a little shallow. But in a certain way, aren't all Disney movies a little shallow? Yeah. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Peace.